students there's 19, and I think there's 25 in the class.
Okay,
So it's
great.
already a good number that's here.
Uh-huh.
Do you have a specific presentation you want to upload?
Yeah, I do. So let me open and just a
Because I
second.
check out the groups because I divided them today in groups already. So we
Oh,
can
you
easily
did.
on a
Okay.
system just select, and then they will be divided into the groups
Whenever
by
is
the
the time.
system.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, my plan today is to carry out a conversation with them and then engage everyone and encourage them to use the chat function.
yeah,
If people don't want to talk, they can just, I will try to my best to observe all of that.
yeah,
And then we will have a time where I'm going to give them a little bit of breakout rooms for them to discuss
mm,
cases, and then they will come back, and then we can finalize the presentation
yeah,
and the
yeah,
discussion.
yeah. And
Okay.
okay, no, that sounds perfect. I just have to break away for a time, but I will join again because I need to travel.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm traveling, I'm going to sign in with my phone, so I will be able to follow. So if there's something, I will be able to assist. I'm not
Okay.
sure if Chepu is going to join. Maybe I must just find out from him. Um,
Well, I should be able to handle on my own, Nico, if there is a problem. And
yeah.
if what time exactly you need to leave?
I will leave 10 past, or just when I'm sure everything is set and you on everything is fine. Um,
Uh-huh.
so because I need to go to Irene there in Centurion
I
this
see.
evening. Unfortunately,
I
that's
see.
now a commitment that I also have that I need
No
to
worries.
meet.
No worries.
But
No.
my apology but I will definitely listen to the recordings.
Oh, no worries.
But but but
Yeah.
but I will follow while you're presenting. So.
Great. Great. I'm trying
The
to
so
share the screen and just a second because the presentation presenter mode is not a good one. Okay, let me just do this. And then just one thing, Nico, is we have about 25 people, you said, you distribute them in groups, and then
yeah,
are they able, I'm trying to look to see the chat function they are very familiar with, I believe, right?
yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I can show you. Otherwise, I must make you moderator. Then you have full control over everything. I think that will be. Oh,
Okay.
there I move you to participant now. What am I doing? So that's not true. So you now moderator. So you will have full control over everything. I
Mm-hmm.
already started the recording, so that's fine. Um, in terms of the groups, if I did upload that two documents you sent to me also under share files. I don't know if you saw it, see it there.
Yeah, this is more for them. I will mention these documents that they can
Yeah,
utilize, but how they can use them. But
yeah.
yeah, we will. We don't need them during the presentation. I don't think so, unless
Okay,
they want to take a look.
okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm go.
If you go, if you
Uh-huh.
sorry, you can first upload that,
Yeah. So
and I
the
will show
the
you
I always forget the best way. Is it share application? I think
share
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 application
share. No,
screen,
no,
right?
no. Share files. Share files is the best. Then
Oh,
it will
okay.
be on the system.
Okay. Okay. Share file. Oh, I have to put the entire presentation there?
Yes, you can. You can pull it
Mm,
in, or you can click on Add Files and then fetch it from your desktop or from the where you
oh,
stored it on your computer. So it can either be in PowerPoint or PDF, so it reads both. Sometimes
uh-huh.
it mess up the PowerPoint a little bit, so hopefully that's not going to happen.
Okay.
It's just the formatting
Okay.
that maybe they sorted out that bug. That was like, I think beginning of the year. Last year was
Uh-huh.
a bit of a problem.
Yeah, no, because I have on presentation mode at the moment, so I was trying to
Mm.
get the screen on it, but I
Oh,
will
but
get.
you can use that share application also if you want to use share application and screen. The only problem then is that you will not be able to see the chat. But if you upload it
Oh,
through
I
share
see.
files, then it's much easier.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have now notes, you will not be able to see notes if you use that.
I see. Let me try this first and then see if it works. And if not,
Okay. Okay,
what
it's
you
showing.
guys
Is that
see
now
is
share
just
files? Yes.
okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Oh, you
Yeah,
share
so
your screen now.
yeah, you
You
were able
share
to see the full
application?
screen.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
did.
No, I
I
can
did.
see it.
I did.
If you want to divide them into groups, Katia, you
Uh-huh.
go there where you upload the share files,
Mm-hmm.
and then you see breakout groups.
I see the groups. Yes, I see there, and I click there, and I can
Yeah, and then
randomly assign them and select how
yeah,
many I want. I
but
see.
you see there's course name and there's group
Uh-huh.
set. I'm just going to change group set to 1 to remove everyone because most of them are now is in a session. So if I move it
Mm-hmm.
to group, because the groups is just group is the name on
Mm-hmm.
the scores. I just name it group. So then you will see it will
Mm-hmm.
divide. If you scroll down, it automatically put all the members that's now signed in into their respective groups. So
Okay.
and they will be able to sign up to a group also if they going to join late. They will be able
So
to sign up.
I see. So I see all their names and I see they are in two groups at the moment. But if I want them to be in three groups, I can also do that,
No,
right?
no, no.
No?
There's 6 groups. If you scroll down, you see group
Uh-huh.
one. There's 2. Group two is 2. Group three is at this moment 4. Group 4
Uh-huh.
is 3, and group 5 is
Okay.
4. I don't know
Okay.
if you see that if you
Oh,
scroll down. So if you want to divide them into groups, you just press start, and then they will break away into their groups.
yeah. From my screen, I only see 10 member. Oh, I see what you mean. But I actually
If
see names of the people on group one and group two only. I don't see the other ones. So I'm
you don't
scrolling
see group
down.
3 and 4.
No, I see one and two. And then I see, yeah. And then in my screen, it shows right on the top that there are a number of groups, only two. And then it says 11
Oh,
members on group one and 11 members on group two. But I
mm,
think if you are leaving, we like about half of this presentation that when we're gonna have a bit more than half, we will have the
yeah,
breakout room. If you are around
yeah,
for that, that would be great, and then you
yeah,
can set this
yeah,
up. And then
yes,
when you can leave after that, and then they
yeah,
will, I guess, return to the main room after that, right? They
yeah,
automatically
yeah.
return. Okay.
Yeah, because
Okay.
we can let them sign up to their own groups also, with that. So, but we'll see at that point um, how we're
Right.
going to
Right.
manage it. Okay, good.
Right.
Um, okay,
Right.
Katia, thank you for being available once again to present to this group. I don't know if the certificate course students going to join. I did send an invite to them also, but
Mm-hmm.
I just want to introduce Prof. Katia Costa Black. She's I know you were at New York University. I'm not sure. I saw your email is still New York University, so I'm a bit confused because you indicated you did move to another
Yeah,
university.
I
So I'm not
know.
sure where
Yeah,
you are now, or are you both in two
I
universities involved? But maybe if you
yeah,
can just tell them
I will
that.
tell them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Costa. Black is a qualified physiotherapist. He's originally from Brasilia, so he's also from the southern hemisphere, but residing now in a northern hemisphere on the west coast of America. And she did a PhD in ergonomics. That was on the east coast of America, if I have it correct.
Yes.
Well, that
Uh-huh.
was in Canada. Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
is that, yeah. So good experience, and now currently focusing a lot on total worker health. And
Yes,
if I have it
exactly.
correct, it seems you're specializing in that direction. But Katia, thank you for being available. Really looking forward to this presentation. And I'm sure the students, I said to them, they have to interact. They must make sure their microphones work. So hopefully that will be the case, so that it's a live, a good interactive session. But thank you, Katia. Really appreciate your time.
I
And over to
appreciate
you.
everyone here today. Yeah, and thank you, Nico, for the introduction. I'll clarify a little bit of where I am and what I've been doing. I am working now at the Oregon Institute of Occupational Health Science, and here in Oregon, the Pacific Northwest of the United States. I was a faculty at NYU, New York University, for a while, but my link and connection to South Africa it started in 2011. So I've been an extraordinary lecturer at University of Pretoria for now quite a bit of time, right, Nico? Nico knows me, and I've been transitioning from place to place,
Yes.
so he's been follow me around. But I had the pleasure to be connected to University of South Africa because I lived in South Africa for a bit more than 4 years, and it's been such a great experience for me that I kept the connection because I really value this class and this conversation. And Nico is asking for participation because I always find fascinating the experiences that you all having with different issues related to occupational health and safety, and I always learn something from discussions with this group. So I've been teaching this course in ergonomics for quite a bit of time now. And the format of this class is really a way to get to know what you need to know for ergonomics. And I will help you through the foundational knowledge that is relevant for your work. But I also want to understand well what are the challenges that you face in the different industries that you might be already working. So I'm very curious to know from your perspective what you are learning and what are the things that you I can help you with the experience that I have in ergonomics. So I want to start this conversation first on what are the things that you heard about ergonomics. If you are not utilizing ergonomics principles and design for your workplace, what kind of issues have you consider and thought about that really ties to the idea of ergonomics. Anyone can just open the mic and speak, or and you can put in the chat. And I hope Nico will help me with that because I will be able to see the chat at the moment. Anyone wants to start with
Yes.
this? Yeah.
Okay, I see the chat is open. Can you see the chat on your side, Katia?
Um, I see. No, I don't actually.
If you maybe in a
Let me
tab
see.
on the browser, if you go to the one that has the red dot, you will most possibly be
Oh,
able, I think you will be able to see the chat if you go there.
uh-huh. Let me see. Yes.
Okay, so
Okay, I see
nobody,
the chat. Nobody's
nobody would look
commenting,
on.
so
Yo.
no experience of ergonomics. Okay, so yeah, this is the first time, Nico, that this class don't have experience. Most of the time, some of the people
No,
do
no,
have
absolutely
experience.
not. They heard about
Okay.
economics already a couple of times, so I'm not sure if they stunted or is maybe a hypoglycemic response after the afternoon, not having their lunch yet. But I see she's Cecily is at a mine in Rustenburg. She's on surface where she's
Uh-huh.
working as occupational hygienist. She actually put a um, comment there, awkward
Aqua
postures when fitters are fixing pumps.
pumps. Okay. Yeah, aquaposture is a big deal. And, even if people are not using ergonomics, apply ergonomics assessments and tools, they probably seen quite a bit of awkward position in different workplaces that they are working. I see another comment on mining sector with heavy lifting and repetitive movement. Yeah, that's it. And how about the experience of computer workstations and how you all are, after the pandemic, we all had to adapt it to different scenarios of working from home with limited equipment, sometimes using just a laptop. So that had led to increase on musculoskeletal disorders. So I'm gonna move to another conversation that I want to have. So, when we see these issues of ergonomics, we're trying to really connect the dot on what is going on with that work system and that relationship. And the focus point that I want to emphasize in this class is really how the system is operating. It is about human capabilities and human characteristics that you have to observe in order to make sure that the design of equipment and workstations and the work environment itself, they are all corresponding to the capabilities of human, because the intention is really to make sure that the work fit the person and not that the person fit the work. And a lot of my experience has been we are all the time fixing these design mistakes that are happening because the consideration for different individuals and different size, humans with different sizes and capabilities is not taking care of it. So we spend quite a bit of time in ergonomics looking into those aspects of the environment to make sure that there is compatibility with the human dimensions, with the human capabilities, and not only the dimension of the physical dimension, but also the psychological and the cognitive dimensions that the work in itself require, right? And one of the good news about ergonomics that is going around in South Africa is, and probably some of you know about this, and I think the mining industry is a little bit different in that regulation has been some more, uh, correct if I'm wrong, Nico, but I believe the mining industry in itself has been doing much more specific ergonomic regulations for longer than general industry. Is that correct?
Yes, they're actually involved in fatigue management. That is where they
Management,
actually
yeah,
involve the ergonomics, but they don't have a ergonomics regulation per se. So it was just
yeah,
incorporated into that. But yeah, so they
yeah,
were involved in a lot of ergonomics drives, but it's
right.
not actually been legislated properly in the mining sector.
Yeah, the implementation part is always a key aspect and, inspections and all that. But I would say one thing from my experience living abroad in different places, when I look into what you have in South Africa right now in terms of ergonomics regulation, is a pretty good standard for getting things going. Now, depend a lot of getting the capability of people to understand how to make improvements on workplace design and really look into how can you really make those system improvements in terms of performance and efficiency as well, because a lot of times we see the two scenarios. One scenario is systems deficiencies that are happening that are affecting the human in terms of injuries and are causing injuries that are serious injuries that could be prevented. But we also have a scenario of also a lot of waste and poor work efficiency that happens. And so these recognition has been going on for a while, and I think the ergonomics regulation that set up in 2019, it just gave a good framework to see that ergonomics is not just one little component of safety that has to be implemented, but rather it has to be a continuous improvement. It talks about involvement of employees in their discussions on making design changes and making ergonomic solutions. And I think those are the characteristics of this regulation that I think professionals involved with this should be paying close attention to what it says. It's simple, it's not robustic, and definitely employers can be at loss on understanding what to do. But if it's used correctly, it can really create a better overall system performance improvements. And the Ergonomic Society of South Africa has great resources. If you are interested in the topic, I highly recommend. There is a certification body now involved with the ergonomics training in South Africa, so it's a good positive thing to really regulate that, because obviously everybody can claim to know about ergonomics, but the reality is that understanding these, like I mentioned, these overall complex work systems require great amount of technical training on some of the risks and assessment tools that we have available. And please, anytime you have a questions, please put it on the chat. And Nico, if I don't see it, please remind me to look. But I would encourage you to consider that this understanding of ergonomics has been for a long, long time. Put it on the side as say an add-on, and maybe to be costly for employers to invest on making changes in the design of workspace and workstation. But we are facing very complex technological use of in every workspace, that changes that are happening in the social technical systems, but also the technology that's being used. So we have to really remind ourselves that the reason we do and change in the system is about improvements for human efficiency and also health and well-being. But the focus point of all ergonomic analysis and assessment is always the interaction. And the interaction in relation to humans with humans, like teamwork, the interactions with humans and products and environment and equipment and all the processes that are happening. And that's why we embrace all these subjects and disciplines. One that is not mentioned here is occupational medicine, but it's a more indirect link to what we have as science, ergonomic science. But you see here that psychology, physiology, biomechanics, anthropometry, all of that are really part of what we study in ergonomics. And some of the methods that we have in ergonomics have really embraced the connection between different disciplines. So I might sound speaking about ergonomics, and you say, "Oh, I heard about this from other subjects or other matters," and it's because we embrace it. It's a very multidisciplinary approach to understand these work systems that I mentioned before. And when you see the reasons why we have issues lingering on, and actually we have rates of musculoskeletal disorders increasing. But I want to ask you, what are the issues? Why you think there are challenges in recognizing these musculoskeletal injuries and and work-related musculoskeletal disorders in the workplace? Anyone want to make um, a comment on this? It's relevant to understand that most countries, and even the countries who have passed through rigorous regulations on ergonomics, they always have that struggle, and there are many reasons for that. There is a comment, Nico?
Yes, Hope raised his hand. Hope you can speak.
Good evening. I just wanted to get a clear view of how the question was raised, so that yeah, I can come up with an answer.
Mhm. Okay, so we know that musculoskeletal disorders are a problem that exists in many workplaces. Why, if we have already preventive strategies happening, why we are still continue to see those rates so high of injuries? Why is that? Why is not a priority? Why is left as kind of a ignored problem?
Okay, Shana, you raised your hand. Can speak. I hope your connection is good enough. Hope you.
So based on the articles I've been reading about, I think not much training is provided for the employees in the workplace in terms of how important ergonomics is. So training lacking in the workplace results in the high increase that we see in the industries that workers don't it's either workers don't know how important it is to take care of their performance in terms of their health, or rather that workers are just ignorant. So based on the articles I found, some studies say that not enough education or training is given to workers. So that's why the increase in injuries and yeah,
Mhm.
the
So
musculoskeletal
excellent. Yeah,
disorders.
yeah, yeah. This is one reason, the lack of awareness, right? But there are other reasons, and employers they are responsible to really trying to get workers to understand prevention and how to be aware of those risk factors, right? Yeah, that's great. Other comments?
There was a chat, Sishle, I'll give you an opportunity now. Yannick said people only have knowledge of physical injuries. There's a comment in a
Mm-hmm.
chat. And then
Mm-hmm.
Sishle um, is raised her hand. And then also Shana. Sishle?
I think another issue is that there's not really, well, I'll speak for where I work, there's not really medical surveillance that is linked to ergonomics or anything like that. And also, it may be hard for the doctors at these medical centers where we work to actually,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know, fix the work to the injury,
Okay.
or say, or actually say that this injury was definitely caused by where he's
Mm-hmm.
working, because they can always say he got hurt at home and all these
Mm-hmm.
other things when
Mm-hmm.
it's actually
Mm-hmm.
an occupational injury. So I think it's hard to
Yeah.
prove that it was an occupational injury. That's what I'm getting at.
I I like two things you comment, the surveillance part and the recognition of work relatedness. And then I will comment on this, but I want to take the next comment from there is another raised hand.
Shana? And then there's two comments, or a couple of comments now in the chat box. Seems a busy warming up here.
Hmm.
While waiting for Shana to connect, I think, Shana, you can speak then?
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I just want to confirm the question is why did we see an increase of musculoskeletal system disorders?
Not only we see increase, we see maintaining the status quo of remaining a issue in almost every single workplace. Yes.
Okay. So I think one of the reasons this could possibly be why this is constantly a problem is because since the 1990s, there's been an increase in technology all over the world. So people aren't running
Exactly.
back and forth between the post office or running down the stairs, going to the fax machine, coming back upstairs, writing down, or going downstairs, going to the girl who's typing everything. They actually had a lot of breaks while they were working and actually getting in some physical exercise. Where now sit for a continuous amount of time in front of your computer, not taking any breaks, not getting a bit of physical exercise, moving your body. And I think that contributes greatly to why we still have a problem with this, because people get stuck in front of their computer.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, excellent comment. So there's the two sides of the problem. One is the issue of injuries happening in places where there is increase on cognitive tasks and reduction on physical demand tasks, and it is still represent and have an impact on the incidence of musculoskeletal disorders because of the complexity of musculoskeletal disorders. It is a multifactorial nature. And that goes back to the comment that was made before about the issue of work relatedness or not work relatedness. When we see the incident of musculoskeletal disorder, the most traditional way of looking to risk is not enough to address the musculoskeletal disorder problem. And the reason is because of the complexity of it. It enters the gray zone of recognition and incidence of injuries. It doesn't have a clear understanding about the connection between the exposure to the risk and the incident of the injury. So the reason is because we know there is cumulative nature of musculoskeletal disorder. It's not one point in time. So when people are exposed to different exposure, different risks, they might be not immediately having symptoms. And then goes back to the idea, how can we make sure that we have a proactive, preventive culture, that we understand not only the importance of early recognition of not symptoms, but discomfort. How about recognition of design problems that are happening in the workspace without actually having any report of symptoms? That is the proactive approach of ergonomics, which is not widely spread. It is not widely implemented. And what happens is that over time, workers either will be continue to work despite of their micro injuries and micro problems that are difficult to go back and see what it's causing. Sometimes they are exposed to something that is very obvious, that is related to the design, that we can modify and improve, and will reduce the occasion, the occurrence of other injuries farther down the line with other workers. But sometimes we don't have the understanding of these design issues, and we continue exposing workers to different modifications on the work process, modification on the task, change on manual handling that might impact on this. So introduction to technology has created problems. It is also has resolved some problems. So I'm going to give you particular examples. With introduction of technology, we had increased the amount of machine and automated system that reduce repetition in certain types of work, and that's beneficial and has decreased. But what we didn't consider is that to retain this workforce and continue keeping them busy on the task, we had created a system of multitasking and creating a distribution of tasks that might not be uh, healthy and might not be presenting itself a solution to the injury problem. So we will have to consider the entire work system and understand what workers are exposed to in the short term, in the long term, and how can we create a better way where if there are some high risk factors involved in the task, we have to address those for sure. But in the long term, we should really create a system where it's a continuous improvement of all activities that might be exposing workers to different level of exposure to the risks that are leading to musculoskeletal disorders. The good news is that most of these injuries are
Katia?
preventable. Yes, there is a comment.
Katia, yes, there was just a few other comments I just want to read to you quickly before
Okay,
you
sure.
proceed. Susan said poor knowledge about the subject. That's also one of the reasons. Yannick
Right.
indicated people only have knowledge of physical injuries. Then
Mm-hmm.
Moramotse indicate the injuries occur over time, so they can get easily ignored. Then
Yeah,
Susan made another
exactly.
comment. People tend to
Uh-huh.
attribute musculoskeletal injuries as something that is normal or expected. In certain sectors, for example, lower back pain is expected in a mining sector. Then
Exactly. Yeah.
Moramotse also said,
Mm-hmm.
following that, lack of funding can also be one of the reasons.
Mm-hmm. And lack of investments on
Yeah,
preventive strategy that is more proactive, right? Because we know prevention requires understanding of early symptoms reporting and not symptoms reporting, but discomfort reporting. And there is a whole conversation, excuse me, in ergonomics word about active surveillance and passive surveillance system that creates a much more robust way, even though companies would be having to track down a lot of information, but it really creates a much more a macro way of looking at the problem instead of every time somebody has an injury that is considered to be work related and you go investigate and address that problem. So if we can think a little bit more of the macro level that is necessary, the organizational level aspects that can lead to these injuries. And I have not mentioned one important thing on this list of why it's not treated as priority. I mentioned that it's a gray area. I mentioned that it's multifactorial. It's difficult to really triage what is the going on with every single worker because there is individual differences on how we actually experience these symptoms and these disorders. And there's some personal factors as well that I'm going to be talking about. But I would say that one of the things that are also often missed is that ergonomics is a silo approach to overall safety that exists for a long, long time. If companies utilize ergonomics as part of safety and part of safety culture improvement and part of understanding and managing those issues in again the showing the research really is strong on indicating that ergonomics should be not a silo approach, should not be seen as a add-on program. It should be part of an entire culture change that you need to see in the workplace in order to maintain and reduce continuously these problems that are coming and are going to rise with different introduction to different technology that we see. But I also like that comment about looking to how the task and how we are sedentary work and how certain tasks are sedentary in nature, is certain tasks are physical demand in nature. And what we're having now is a little bit of unequal distribution there, and creating a system where people are less sedentary, more active is part of what ergonomics is also trying to do. Active workstation is a positive thing. But we have to be careful about also the extreme of physical activities that are highly demands. And we know there are certain workers that are exposed to physical demands that exceed their capabilities. But I was moving forward to understanding that these injuries are very costly. We know that there are many ways of preventing. There are many information and strategy. I'm hoping that I will share with you a few of them. I share with you a guideline that is not so new. It's 2010, the one from ESA and about developing country, but it does have great information list about how to address in a more comprehensive way these injuries. And it is possible also to look into certain programs that exist in your country and your work environment and see what is going on with this program, why it's so successful. And I'm not talking about ergonomics. Like, let's say, if you have a very well robust health surveillance program that is working, what is the missing piece there that you could include some aspects that could target these ergonomics injuries as well in that program. So sometimes recreating and starting from scratch is not the best way. It's better to really integrate it to what it is done well by the people. And we know there is lack of resources, human resources, to carry out ergonomic evaluations, ergonomic assessments that are rich in information that can address some of the workplace solutions that are needed for certain workplace, but really partner with people who are understanding the tasks and in the workers themselves to understand how can you address this. But making sure that everybody understand what musculoskeletal disorders are. I'm not going to read this, but it's really affecting different parts. And of course, if it is affecting muscles, if it's affecting the nerve, they are completely different symptoms, right? Workers will experience completely different symptoms. So what it becomes complicated in ergonomics most of the time in terms of prevention is that the muscle ache that we experience, all of us will experience low back pain at some point in time in our lives, right? It can be related to our activities that we do. It can be a mother lifting a child. It can be you have a small car accident in the way to work. It may not be totally related to the work in itself, but what we know is that the muscle will be affected if you have exposure to certain task and awkward position and force over time. That accumulation, cumulative nature of it will lead to serious muscle injuries and muscle pain. So we want to prevent that to happen, right? Irrespective of how other aches and in the body might happen, we have to pay attention to what's happened at work with the tasks and thinking about that very point that I made it before about that interaction, right? We know certain aspects of affecting the nerve are a little bit more straightforward. Carpal tunnel syndrome is a type of musculoskeletal disorder that affects directed nerve. And what we know is that if we reduce the exposure to those position on the wrist and contact stress pressure on the wrist, the incident will decrease as well. But the trouble with the nerve injuries, and some doctors here on the call might know about that, is that they take longer to recover. They need a lot more medical attention. And when it comes to the muscles, people can really prepare themselves for the task and prevent it with exercise and prevent it with, say, the distribution of these injuries, these disorders are very different for whatever parts of the musculoskeletal system that is affected. We have to pay attention to that in order to make sure that we are addressing the problem in the most like holistic way that we can. And thinking that also exposure of time. So what else do you know about time exposure? Um, Does anybody knows about the difference between non-specific low back pain and specific low back pain? No comments? Okay. So no specific low back pain is when we don't know the cause of the low back pain, and it is difficult to diagnose because they will not have any image changes on the bone structure or a slip disc. You won't see any slip disc or anything. You would see a report of reoccurrence where workers would say, I feel my back is killing me, and it going on, and then he recovers. And usually, if it's muscle related, he will recover within 2 to 3 days maximum. He will be back to being full function. But then, if he exposed to the same type of position and aqua position and a stress on their body, it will happen again and again. So, no specific meaning that the doctors were not able, with imaging testing and the physical examination determined what is wrong with the structure of the musculoskeletal system in the spine. If that's the case, that is can lead to disability as well as something more serious that has damage in the structure. If it's specific, you probably will the doctors will be able to identify uh, uh, either a burst disc between the vertebra, or a slip disc, or a torsion, or a specific ligament inflammation. They will be able to identify that. When it's non-specific, that becomes very difficult, and trying to prevent that to aggravate to a specific problem is pretty much the job of looking to ergonomics design. Is that a comment there, Nico?
No, I actually raised my hand. In terms of the non-specific musculoskeletal disorder, the one that we do not know what the cause is, would a medical surveillance report kind of like give us an idea of what might have contributed to the musculoskeletal disorder, or it doesn't show?
Well,
In
the
terms of the obstetric?
traditional medical surveillance will identify in terms of body aches and pains. I would say that what would we want to detect with non-specific is more the discomfort reporting. And that is something we have validated questionnaires that can be used to identify discomfort. They are very simple. The most important thing is that workers need to be protected from retaliation for reporting discomfort. The discomfort information is used to validate where you in the body that is have a particular discomfort. And if there is a group of, let's say you work in a manufacturing environment where you see the reporting, anonymous reporting, that more than 50% in that work group has a shoulder discomfort, that calls attention and is a proactive way to look into the task in details and identify the exposure to risk factors that are affecting the shoulder, and utilize a more specific tools in ergonomics for that purpose, and then target the reduction of risk that is exposing workers to pain in their shoulder, discomfort in their shoulder. That's a much more proactive way. The traditional medical surveillance system doesn't capture that. Um, we use a very simple body map to identify discomfort, and the questions are, questions related to the time exposure. So, like you say, do you experience discomfort in which body part? How long you been experiencing this? What aggravates your discomfort? Those questions, I'm just giving some example, but if anybody is interested to see what is the discomfort survey look like, I'll be happy to share after this class. I'll send it to you, a sample of it. And one of the guidelines has, I think I share the ESA one might have something, but if it, I will double check. If it's not, I will send the specific one for you to know. And this is something that can be added on to a traditional medical surveillance, health surveillance system, just really to triage what's going on in different departments. That's quite helpful. And you probably all of you know these examples of musculoskeletal disorders. There are some other ones, but I mentioned something about the back, and of course, a sprain is easy to treat. We know that there are ways of preventing sprain, especially, and I want to take the opportunity to ask all the doctors here, what do they know about exercise programs and prevention of musculoskeletal disorders? Does anybody know anything about that?
Sorry, before you go, will it be possible for you to share with us the validated questionnaires to detect the
The
validated question?
discomfort? Yes, I would do that. Okay, discomfort.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
okay. So anyone wanna comment? Do they know what is the evidence on exercise and prevention of musculoskeletal disorders? When and what to do with that? And I know there are a lot of conversations about making workers athletes. So I have some considerations about that. But I also know about what the research says. What is the recommendation for preventing musculoskeletal disorders from the point of view of improving our physical abilities? Can exercise help at all? Does anybody know if exercise can be helpful? No comments? Okay, so very simple. This is not complicated. The evidence shows that for a workforce that is healthy, that doesn't have previous injuries, exercise is excellent for preventing injuries to happen. Now, the trouble is that we have workforces that are already have sprain and all kinds of musculoskeletal disorders. How can we actually, if you make it a voluntary and you make the workforce stretch and warm up before they're doing any kind of physical activity, that can be extremely beneficial, especially if workers have no previous injuries. If they have previous injuries, they need to do the specific exercise for their injuries and followed by a physical therapist and a professional and a medical doctor that will follow them through their recovery process. Is anyone agree with this? Does anyone disagree with this? Is anybody has a different experience that they want to share? A successful story with exercise?
I don't have a successful story with exercise, but based on the physiology knowledge that we got last year, and so we were doing exercise physiology, and our lecture said that exercise improves the brain activity. So, and we just spoke about musculoskeletal disorders in the nerves. So this would literally help alleviate or prevent musculoskeletal diseases in terms of exercising, as it will improve brain activity that is related to the nerves. Yeah, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great comment. So exercise is beneficial for our health in general, and that's we have no doubts about that. Now, the only concern would be that we are transforming workers in athletes because of deficiencies of design. My only concern is when workplaces start creating strengthening programs and transforming workers in mini athletes in order to perform the task where there are design issues first to be considered. As long as it is a combination of approach where you actually address the design issues first and the task demands, then you are completely right of incrementing that with exercise programs that can be beneficial for our health. And most workers can benefit from that, except that some workers, we have to think about discrimination. We have to think about some workers won't be able to complete certain types of exercise. And we have to think about keeping that in a way that doesn't create more inequality and inequity in the workplace, right? Anybody, there's another comment? No? Okay. So the symptoms are, some of them are listed here, and I mentioned that certain aspects of it, we want to, before we get to these really nerve system, like tingling, numbness sensation, we want to make sure we address the ergonomic issues before that. That's the ideal way, right? But obviously, if you have numbness And tingling, that means the injury already happened, and you do have to figure it out a way of reducing the exposure. Now, there are other symptoms that are not listed here. Can anyone guess which ones are happening? It can happen. So sometimes workers only experience symptoms when they go home and they wake up in the middle of the night with pain, or they might not have experienced that while they're doing the task, because depending on the task they're doing, if the task is like physically in demand and has a lot of physical effort involved, they might be only when they rest they will experience some symptoms, right? But we have additional to this, you can experience swollen. You can experience also, people can experience sensations related to their eye discomfort. They can also experiencing loss of flexibility and tightness of the muscles. Yeah, some of the other ones, they are quite specific to the type of injuries that they have. Um, these are really the summary of the main ergonomic risk factors, but I mentioned it's multifactorial. And what that means to you, what it means multifactorial. Musculoskeletal disorder is multifactorial nature, which means what? What does that mean?
From the word multifactor, I think ergonomics is mainly affected by multiple factors, such as what we are seeing here: the force, repetition of the task, and obviously the body posture. So these
Yes, and
have an influence,
uh-huh,
play a very big role in influencing
right.
economics.
So we have the nature of the risk can be multiple, combining different risks. So force and repetition can be part of it, force and postural risk. So most of the time, the injury occurs when there are more than one. And but if we can eliminate at least one, we already going in the direction of prevention. Of course, reducing all, it will be the goal. But most of the time, with the depending on the task, we only able to reduce one. If the workers are exposed to all three, then if you reduce one, it's not going to be enough. So you have to really understand what are the exposure, and we're going to see some examples, and we're going to discuss this. But the other piece is that in addition to combining different factors, the exposure consideration that we have to look at it. If somebody is exposed to a awkward position for a few seconds and they don't do this very often, that's not considered to be an ergonomic risk factor. So exposure duration, the frequency, and the intensity is what we actually gather as data when we're doing ergonomic assessments. And most of the time, the data collection and the ergonomic assessment are really easy process that you can identify what is the duration, the frequency, the intensity. But in addition to these three are the categories that we see in almost all ergonomic risk assessment for musculoskeletal disorders. But we have to consider these other groups of factors. These contributing factors are personal factors and environmental factors. And some of you already know about that, but we also know that when we see there are differences in age, difference in gender, we know that carpal tunnel syndrome, there is a strong link with women that are pregnant and the occurrence of carpal tunnel syndrome. So think about this. If you do know about personal factors, obesity, poor postural habits, all of that, and diseases and comorbidities that can lead to musculoskeletal disorders, if you know all of that, those are factors that you cannot intervene, you cannot change. This is how people are. And we are working on improving work systems for humans. So we have to consider those factors, but the factors that we are going to address and resolve in our workplace design are really the ergonomic risk factors that I mentioned before. But in addition to those ergonomic risk factors, we also have to consider these environmental factors. And, exposure to vibration, gloves that are unfit might increase the amount of applied force in the hand. So making sure the PPE is really fit to the workers, making sure that it's considering the different sizes of employees when you are doing a selection of PPE, because that will impact about movement and will impact about posture and will impact about force. And looking also in ambience and low and high temperature, there are a few other environmental factors that influence musculoskeletal disorder, in particular when we are looking to the exposure to neck injuries because of moving bend our head down, and one is lightning. So in addition to these factors, if you consider the amount of light that workers need to perform the task, and we're going to talk about designing how can we making sure we are considering all these elements when we are evaluating the workspace. And now we have entering the area where involves the organizational level factors that influence musculoskeletal disorders. So there is now good research showing some links between job-related stress and musculoskeletal disorders. We also have when workers are pressured with different types of management climate that creates tension that can lead, they're more susceptible to develop these musculoskeletal disorders. So thinking about the non-physical environment, how we are looking to the social environment and the organizational policies of work demands, how these work demands are influencing somebody to do fast-paced and lift tasks or something like that, or computer work even, in a pace that is not healthy for them and that can lead to musculoskeletal disorders. So thinking about all these issues, and these are really information on exacerbating factors leading to musculoskeletal disorders coming from research. And we know that certain types of tasks needs to have clear training on communication and teamwork in order to the task to be performed well. So it's not just about individual behavior, it's about teamwork behavior, it's about management practices, it's about task variability. So thinking about outside the picture of the physical environment and entering the picture of the social environment and social technical environment is very important to address musculoskeletal disorders. And then, so this is kind of an illustration of how you look into all these factors together. And the idea is that we want to prevent a musculoskeletal risk, right? And we know these factors here are the biomechanical hazards that I mentioned, the three ones, the organizational factors that I just described, the psychosocial managers that are hostile and have conflict with employees might lead to really create a more unsafe environment, then employees can eventually develop a musculoskeletal disorder. And the link between musculoskeletal disorder and job-related stress is also very relevant here. The individual factors that I mentioned. So when that happens, we want to understand what is the mechanism of injury, how that happened. So you see at the bottom that box explain how that affects the entire person. Thinking about more holistically, that affects the entire person because not only everyone will experience the same way. Some people will just experience some mild discomfort, maybe a very mild discomfort in the neck, or a mild headache even, and that can go on, and over time these exposures going on will impact also our musculoskeletal system directly. It is part of our mechanism of reaction to these exposure. So when they design for safety, work efficiency, and comfort, meaning you are looking very deeply at that center of this figure of human characteristic and capability. And I want to go right into that because I think that's the key piece that I want to leave you here today after this talk. And I want to give you some time for discussing some cases. So when we go into the workplace, the questions will be around where do we start? What are the things that we consider? So I think all of you have a different process and of understanding these injuries. Maybe you're already doing some work on prevention, but I want to hear from you. What is your starting point? How do you begin? How do you begin addressing prevention for musculoskeletal disorders? How do you start that point? Any comments? Okay. So if there's no comment, I'm gonna
There is
share
a
how I,
comment,
yeah,
and
I, yeah,
that is
sorry.
identifying work activity.
Okay. The work activity that is leading to potential problems, right, on the musculoskeletal system.
Yes, and to also start with a risk assessment.
Okay. Okay, and then that risk assessment can be involving workers or can be an expert base. So depending a lot, but I think one of the thing about is that exposure to this risk is not one point in time. So I want to share my process with you because I think it's relevant that we say you can start with identifying what is wrong with this workplace and identify the major issues and go on. But once you identify some urgent need to address this problem, then you go back and go say, okay, maybe I have some other issues that are not too urgent, but I want to be more proactive and I want to address them earlier. So identify problem means identify root causes. Identifying problems also means that you are communicating with workers to know what is the highest demand of this job. And with that highest demand, does this demand exceeds the capabilities of most workers to complete those tasks? And that's a kind of starting point. Once you know where the major problems are, then you go into looking to risk assessment tools that gives you specific risk levels that you want to be able to do a before and after, right? You want to be able to measure the risk level at one point before any intervention happen. And then if you make any changes in the engineering of the workstation or the work design, then you're going to measure it again to see if there's any changes that came back, right? And then you go on and compare to existing guidelines and principles, and you continue involving workers in this process of solution. So my way of looking into the process is not missing these essential elements. And I describe it here for you. You're all going to have access to these slides I will share with you. But the main focus would be to not forget those environmental factors that I mentioned. The equipment aspects is everything that people use in the workplace and the devices. And if you're talking about computer workstation, thinking about all the input devices, output devices that people are using. Sometimes we have people working with 4 different computer screens and monitors, paying attention to how much exposure to light and necessary for that work to be done in a way that is not going to cause neck pain or eye strain, right? For especially people exposed to blue light from monitors. Making sure also the second piece is this understanding the processes and the people, right? Behavior, understanding the safety culture. And we now have some safety culture metrics and measurements that can be benchmarked and compare across different organizations. This is happening now, and it's very exciting time as these new tools has been developed to help us understand where employers are in safety culture. And safety culture is a deep level of a conversation of understanding all the procedures, the management practice, the attitudes and beliefs of teams and groups, not just individual. And then really be able to look into the entire operation of the tasks and how that is distributed across the organization, the work organization. So most of the time, the ergonomics tools, if you are not fully trained in ergonomics and you want to experiment ergonomics and test some, there are no expert types of tools that you can use to evaluate manual tasks. I'm going to mention and I'm going to set up a time now that you're going to look have a breakout, and you're going to discuss some of these tasks, and I'm going to get back here and finalize this presentation with you. But I want to give it to you opportunity to see these specific. Sorry, I have a slides that I'm skipping here because I want to go right there. So when we go to, this is one toolkit that I share with you is the American Industrial Hygiene Association. They had revised the toolkit this year, 2023, and is available for everybody to use. And what you need to know is that it is a guided way of doing this tool is to use this flow chart. This flowchart has here the generic tools that anyone can use. So they are, if you're doing office work, these are the recommended office work assessment tools. If you are doing more upper body and manual type of work and it involves repetition, using the ruler. If you're doing the entire body where there's movement on the upper body as well, you use the REBA, the rapid entire body. So it has a whole guidance, and this guideline has this toolkit has description every tool. So you see the purpose of the tool, when not to use it, the required level of expertise that you needed. But we're going to focus on the ones that doesn't require any expertise. This particular tool, the Washington State Caution Zone and the Washington State Hazard Zone, can be used across different multiple workplace, including even office environment. And you can use that, and you can train workers to utilize this tool as well. So you don't need to do just one person expert on this. So you can actually train workers to learn about this tool, and it's a very easy process. There's really good guidance and YouTube video. So I just want to show you that in order to, if you are discovering there's some risks that are part of the job, what you want to do is identify the specific risk factors and identifying the tools that will give you more information on that risk factor. And this is also continuation of that flow chart in case you need a more in-depth assessment. So let's say the task involves push and pulling, and that risk assessment, the generic one that you do, the Washington State checklist that I mentioned, doesn't give you enough information about that. So you go and you identify there is a problem there. Then you go on and you do more human capability physiology equations that helps you to understand where you are in terms of the risk. And that can be done for also lifting tasks and more specific on these exposure to upper body work. So these are the tools that I want you to keep in mind if you're going to work in a workplace. And I'm going to do a breakout room now. There are three different cases, and the way I'm going to do this is this. I'm going to do group 1 and 2 will work on case 1. And what I think the easiest way would be to take a picture of this slide right here. So let me see the distribution, who is in group 1 and 2. Do you know which groups you are? Does everybody know which group they are?
Yes, I'm sure we all do.
Okay, great. Great. So I would like if you can just group 1 and 2 take a picture, and this is the discussion you're going to have, right? What elements in the system you should be considered based on what we talked just now? What are you can use the generic tool just to take a look. If you know, if you want to see where to find them, you can just search for cautions Washington State Caution Zone Checklist, and you will find, or you can use any other tool. And you don't need to even use a tool. You can just identify the risk by discussing and observing that. And this is a description of the work. This is case one. So group 3 and group 4 will look into this case too, rust removal in confined space. And you will have the description here at the bottom and the same type of questions. You don't need to use, I think we're going to run out of time, so you don't need to use the tool. You can just discuss number 1 and then number 3. If you can identify some of the risks, that would be great. Okay, and then case 3 is a computer image work station, and the same way. So here you have a kind of a description of the exposure to the tasks, and you can tell me what is wrong with the picture, what are the issues there in terms of the ergonomic risk. So what I'm expecting is that group 5 and 6 will look into case 3. Group 5 and 6, what I would like to see is that these groups, you're going to have one person reporting back from each of the group, just telling me what you are discussing, what are the things that you identify there. And then just really quickly by looking at the picture, because obviously you need to observe the entire task to be able to identify most of the ergonomic problems. But this is kind of just a glimpse of what our considerations are for you to evaluate. So I'll give you I will give you 7 minutes and then you come back to the room. So let me start. I think Nico already left, so I want to make sure he's there.
Katia, I can try to divide them into the groups.
Okay.
I'm just going to park now, so I think I will quickly see if I can do it on my mobile.
Can I do on my side? I can try to do it on my side. Let me
Okay,
see.
I'm here, so let's see if I get number of groups. So that is 6, but it's not randomly assigned, so it's a group set. I'll be with you now. Just give time. In the meantime, the students can think about their assignments.
The questions.
So,
Yeah. Let's give them, because we won't run out of time. Let's give them just 6
okay.
minutes.
Group set, group name, group. Okay, there it's dividing now into the groups. So I'm going to start. It seems they are in. So otherwise, they must just go in themselves, sign up to the group. So I move them to the groups now. I might lose you for a moment, so yeah, but then I'm going to be back.
Okay, no worries. Good luck with your match, Nico. You're going to play? Are they back? Nico? Can they bring it back? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are you guys happy? Oh, are we back? Oh.
We're back.
Everybody's back. Yes. Sorry to interrupt the conversation. I hope you're having a nice chat. We have to go back, and I want to ask everyone, do you have a hard stop now? You want to stop now, or can you carry on for another 10 minutes? Anybody needs to leave right now? Good for 10 minutes extra? Sorry, that's my time. Okay, great. Okay, so let's have group one and group two open the mic, the two-person responsible, and just walk through what you saw and
I don't
discuss as elements to consider for this type of task. Group one wants to start first. Group two.
For group two, for this picture we realized that the heavy lifting will be bad for his lower back, and it seems like he's doing it over and over again, so it's repetitive. So that's an issue as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the next question is, what would you do if a risk is identified to the next steps? So we decided to use the hierarchy of control. So we decided to
Right.
eliminate the exposure first. So if you can automate the system, or get a machinery that can do the work, and let someone operate the machinery instead of actually lifting it and having to be in this position over and over again. And
Mm-hmm.
then um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
and
we just
that's
decided to eliminate.
mhm. That's great. Yeah, eliminate sounds perfect. Yes. And group one wants to comment on added any information?
Oh, I was in group two.
I know, but now I'm moving to group one, back to group one. Do they have any comments? The same process and thinking of the loads and repetition and the too much of the loads? Yeah. So this case is one of the consideration here is the fact that he's doing the task alone, right? Somebody wants to, Mr. Motuba wants to say something. No, we cannot hear you. Can you open the mic? No, we don't hear you. Something seems to be wrong with my mic. Okay. Anybody else in the group that wants to say something since he's not able to? Okay. So really about the elements, right? Remember we talked about the physical and the non-physical aspects of it. There is a non-physical element there, which is part of the work organization. The person is doing the task alone because somebody else is sick. this will require a consideration of either making modifications for the task to be done by one person, or actually this is also part of elimination, but not just from the physical aspects, from the organizational level aspects. So if somebody is not able to do the job and they actually had an injury, we don't know what kind of injury it was, could be related to the task. Evaluating depth on how they do together and how this person is doing alone. Leaving this person to do alone is a wrong thing to do, right? And obviously, there are teamwork aspects that we don't know and we don't see on the picture, but that would be also another important part of evaluating this is to see, first of all, this task should not be done by one person, evaluating the task in a sense of understanding what are the aspects that the person can do together. So this is a summary of some elements to consider from the physical environment, understanding all of that, the twisting, if there is postural constraint, the grip. The floor is another thing that we have to consider. The amount of bending the person needs to do. Can the platform be raised? All of that matters for lifting tasks. But in addition to it, consideration of the processes and the work organization will be kind of top priority. And then you see that the ergonomics tools would have these considerations, but they don't, some risk assessment would only focus on these particular factors that are listed here. So in the guideline, the toolkits that I share with you, you would see specific lifting task assessment tools, and you will be able to evaluate the task using these variables and considering those variables. But I encourage you to think a little bit beyond that risk assessment list and make your own evaluation of the process and the work organization aspect. Now, moving to case 2, what are the things that you both observed there, both groups, group 3 and group 4, that are considered ergonomic risks?
Hi,
Group
ma'am.
3? Yes.
So it's group 3 here. Um, we
Okay.
we didn't really get time to look at any of the controls that we could like uh, put in
Could do.
place, but we did identify that there would be a lot of repetitive movement here and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
cramped movement as well. He's working for 2 hours straight, which is also not a good idea. It's a lot of hard work for such a long period of time. Regular breaks would probably be a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Group 4 wants to add any information there?
Hi, Professor. So he's working in quite a confined space. So the ventilation, I think, is quite a problem there, and also his mask that looks like a clothing piece that he's using as a mask. So that could also cause some problems, because I think there might be quite a bit of dust exposure due to the scraping of the metallic door. So we also identified that, and maybe lead exposure from the paint as well.
Right. Yeah, that's I like this idea of looking at the whole system here, and considerations on beyond the design is consideration of safety as well, right? But thinking on particular musculoskeletal injuries, there's two things telling me here there are need to further investigation. One is you see the handle of the tool he used, there has a diameter that is pretty large for his hand. And I don't know, I didn't have opportunity. The design guidelines in terms of apply force in the hand shows that the diameter should be between 1.52 and maximum 3 centimeters distance to be able to have a good grip. And this is for an average of 95 percentile population. So we want to make sure that the design of the tool is correct one from the ergonomic point of view. From the environment point of view, all the points that you said is excellent observing, and the temperature of the space, it also matters because he's wearing PPE, and the amount of apply force that he might be using in combination to high heat built from using the PPE and the space, if he in a confined space. In terms of that, that should be another consideration of also creating more harm in terms of fatigue, and muscle fatigue can be built really quickly when you are in those hostile environment, right? Um, Now let's go to group 3, the computer settings, and group. Oh no, I'm sorry, group 5. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed group 4. Group 4 is
Hi, it
group
was me who shared
4.
for group 4.
Okay, sorry, group 5. Sorry,
Thank you.
I think group 5 is the number case 3, isn't that?
Hmm.
Okay. So you want to just give us an overview of the main risks observed here?
Awkward working position because the way she's sitting, she's kind of bending, which is not the appropriate position. Also, like the way where the mouse and the keyboard is placed. So maybe suggestion to like change the workstation layout, and also maybe to
Mm-hmm.
have the screen moved back because it's too close. Even the way she's like, she can have like neck problems. Look at the way she's looking there. It's too close to actually try be comfortable. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Because also she's not sitting right in front of it. It looks like the mouse is in a little bit on the side, and she's looking
Mm.
on the side. Yeah. Okay. And group 6, do you want to add anything to this? No? Okay, I think all of you have really important considerations in terms of the design, and you really on target on many of the issues that we see and we observe on this kind of environment. But every single, of course, a picture doesn't give a full sense of what the work really entails, and really considerations here is design considerations to keep postures neutral. This is applicable for across different types of tasks. So if you're talking about computer work or non-computer work, the design considerations are very, very similar. And we keep guidelines. Sorry, somebody, I think somebody needs to mute. Okay. So I want to just really finalize this conversation with somebody mentioned hierarchy of controls. So I want to make sure that everybody is aware that the elimination should be priority number one. And then when it's not possible, definitely going on the next level, which is making changes on the equipment. We mentioned that rust removal, if you were able to utilize any kind of different tool for the rust removal, that will be really ideal. When workstations cannot be changed, then we go into administrative controls. And that will be the hierarchy here on job rotation, change schedule, and observing how long the person exposed to those work tasks and demands, and trying to see if they can do any kind of alternation between other workers to do the task if it's very demanding, and reduce the exposure of duration to those risks. And one final thing in terms of office ergonomics, I will share with you a guideline for musculoskeletal prevention from that was developed in Canada on Ontario, and I think this will help you to understand where we are in terms of evaluating all these devices, and give you some tips about laptop use as well. But one of the issues that we are facing is that workers and employers are struggling to really prevent musculoskeletal disorders from the point of view of keeping people healthier in the workplace. Because and Nico mentioned at the beginning of my presentation that I've been working with this concept of total health, which is an approach that looks into utilizing ergonomics and other practices on the arena of addressing social determinants of health. So thinking more holistically, how can we create it active workstation, more decrease the sedentary type of jobs that are out there, include wellness programs and other things that to keep people healthy. Because if we fix all kinds of workstation, but we still have workers that don't understand healthy habits and healthy lifestyle, then we're going to have a problem because we were not going to be fixing the root causes of these issues of that are affecting their health. So remember that we talk about musculoskeletal disorders and the exacerbating factors like diabetes and obesity and other comorbidities that can have. So thinking about that level of influence and how can we make sure that when we're designing workstation, we do a more comprehensive approach where we're looking to improving the design, reducing the risk elimination as top priority, but we also looking to avoiding that ergonomics is in a silo and we created in a system where we incorporate some of the total health or wellness programs that are necessary for workers to keep health in their work environment. So that's all I want to say. And I think I passed my time. So I'm really apologizing here. I like these conversations a lot and I encourage you to speak during that. And my intention was really to get you speak. And I appreciate every one of you participating today. And just, if you need any assistance, you can send me an email. I and I got a note that one of you asked for the discomfort survey questionnaire. I'm going to be sending that out, and I'm going to sending out to everyone these office guideline that I use from Canada that I think will be useful for every one of you that are dealing with office environment. Any questions? Anything to wrap up?
Just
No?
massive thanks for presenting this presentation to us. It was very much informative. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for participating. Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
everyone and stay well,
Thank you
stay
very much,
healthy.
ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye, Shana.